is a good friend of my mentor, Dr. Willard Frank, who I trained with for 25 years. He did a study with the Apollo 11 mission, and he got a photograph of one of the astronauts, and he measured his vital signs from a photograph every hour, like his breathing rate and his heart rate and things like that. The same things that they're doing on the spacecraft, you know, they're wired up and they monitor their health up there. So he did this every hour from here to the moon on one astronaut. He created a 500-page report. Yeah, that was a lot of diligence, I must say. More diligence than I have. But he did this for the entire trip, and he took the 500-page report and he sent it to NASA. And he said, could you compare this to what you guys were reading on the spacecraft? It matched hour by hour from here all the way to the moon. Hour by hour. I probably shouldn't tell this story, but I'm going to anyway. So I have a friend who's an Sec-5 practitioner, and he had a friend that was an astronaut. And this was many years later. And so he was talking with him about radionics and this kind of thing, and that we use a photograph. And he said, you know, that reminds me, when I was in my training, they took me into this special room, and they put me on this platform, and it turned really slowly, and I had to take off all my clothes, and they took this three-dimensional holographic picture of me. And I said, on the way out, well, what's that for? And he said, well, in case you get sick while you're out in space, we can fix you from here. So that report must have had an impact in NASA. Later, he denied the whole story to my friend because I said, I wanted to get more information about this. So he calls him again. He said, I never told you that story. No, that never happened. But it did happen, and it's part of their, not talked about stuff in NASA. So on Monday, I will actually do a physical demonstration with this. We'll take a couple volunteers. We'll go through things, and I'll show you what we can do. But and I'll also talk about scalar fields and pure informational fields and collapsed electromagnetic fields, how we create all of this. It's a fascinating study. This is fantastic stuff. This was a question that I had when I was preparing for this talk. Should we call it information medicine? Now that we've got to quantum medicine, should we call this new field of study informational medicine? Some people are calling it that. But my question with it is, what would it be? So some of the ideas that I came up with was, there already is information medicine. Homeopathy is information medicine. They've taken information, they've put it into a pill or water, and they dilute it so many times there is no chemical substance left in there. There's nothing left in there other than the sugar tablet or the water. So all that's left is information. The next one is positive support. That actually is medicine. This can be extreme. For example, there's a very famous event that happened. A woman went to a doctor, and he said, boy, she was really sick. And they said, okay, we better do exploratory surgery. So she said, okay, she agreed to it. They took her in the operating room. He opened her up, and she had so much cancer inside of her. He said, there's nothing we can do. And so they sewed her back up and took her out. But the doctor said, I didn't have the heart to tell her. So he came out to her, and he said, well, it's okay. He thought she would probably live about 2 to 3 weeks. Everything went fine. We looked through everything. There wasn't anything there. Go home, have a good life. He just didn't have the heart to tell her. So she went home, and she came back a few months later, and she was completely healthy. And she lived the rest of her life without any problems. This was pure information from one doctor. She believed him, and he said it in all good faith, not to harm her, and he didn't even know it would have that effect. But he gave her information, only information, and her whole entire body healed, completely healed. So that's positive support or talking. Another one would be prayer or meditation. We've all heard of distant healing through meditation or prayer. Somebody had mentioned it earlier. Dr. Goswami mentioned that there are places that are doing distant healing through prayer and meditation. This is another form of information traveling at a distance. And then, of course, we have programmed substances like holograms, crystals, tachyon energy. This has become a whole field, a huge field. I mean, we're talking $20 to $30 million a year just for one product. People are programming, using our technology, the SE5, to program crystals or holograms, and then they, like for example on Amazon, they have, you can buy them now, hologram stickers for pain, and you just stick it on wherever it hurts and the pain goes away. Yeah, it's cool stuff. We'll go through more of that on Monday. So a couple months ago, I went to China, and this man, Dr. Han, has been collecting ancient herbal remedies, ancient Chinese remedies that most of them do not exist anymore because either the family member that knew how to make them has passed on and it didn't get passed on to the children, but the remedies still exist. So he's been collecting these for years. He spent over $800,000 collecting these ancient herbal remedies. His concern was that they don't know how to make them. And he found out about the SE5. And so I went to China, and what he wanted me to do was to measure each one of these herbal remedies and convert that into digital information that we can store in the computer, and then we can take and reconvert that digital information back into usable energy, or information again, not energy, and imprint it into water or crystal or holograms, and see if that would have the same effect on the clients as the original remedy. So we ended up doing over 500 remedies. I sat there for 4 or 5 days, 6, 7 hours a day, measuring each one of these remedies. We were very committed. We had a team of about 20 people, boiling up the remedies and then passing them on, and we did step by step, and we created a frequency, informational frequency tuning for each one of those 500 remedies. And they've tried them on over 200 people by now. This was a few months ago. And it's worked. About 80% of the remedies that we're putting into water are working just the same as the original remedy. Yeah? This is really exciting research. Now, I'm not saying it works 80% of the time. It doesn't work for every remedy. It doesn't mean you could take, let's say, a drug, a specific drug, and then get a frequency for it, and then put that into water, and it would work just like the drug. Some it does, but not all of them. But with the herbal remedies, their frequency range is in a good frequency range, and we've had about 80% success with them. So it's just me working on those. But they were also working in agriculture. They've been doing this for about 3 years. And in China, they wanted to have their own name, so they call it the quantum space equalizer, not the SE5. They couldn't relate to those letters, SE5. It didn't make sense. So they came up with their own name, and it's called the quantum space equalizer. And they used the QSE to take this piece of land, and this is what the soil looked like. It looks a lot like the soil here. It was not very good soil to begin with. And over a 3-year period, they turned it into this, gardens and edible plants. And they did a lot of experiments along the way. For example, it's jumping. Can you guys see the yellow lines here? This was the only area. They wanted to see what would happen if they only sent the informational fields to that specific area. And this is the area that they treated right here. And in the next one, they did it in the circular area. And you can see that the plants were responding much better in that area than the rest of the field. And that gave them a lot of hope, and they're expanding their fields. They did a lot of also row studies. So they labeled the rows and then looked at which rows they were treating and which ones they weren't. And we'll go more into this kind of thing in the workshop as well. They did all these studies back in the 1950s. This is not new. But because of the chemical companies, they've suppressed most of this information. But they get a lot of food, and it's beautiful, and they're very excited about all that in China. So this is an example. I'm sure you've all seen the work of Dr. Emoto. And he wrote in Japanese the word dirty on a vial of water here down at the bottom. And that is what then he froze the water afterwards, after he had written it on the vial and set it down. And he took the same water in a different vial, and he wrote the word beautiful on it. And he froze both of them and then looked at them under the microscope. This information was imprinted into the water. Yeah? So which one would you rather drink? That one? Now there's only information in there. Or the beautiful one? I vote for the beautiful one. So when you have your glass of water, if you want to make it better, just write on a piece of paper or some tape or something and say beautiful, lovely, loving, high vibrations, God, and tape it onto your glass of water. It will charge the water with higher frequency energy. This was some Tokyo tap water before praying, and he put a vial on a desk, and then he sent out information to 500 people and said, everybody focus your attention and your prayers onto this water and think good thoughts about it. And this is what the water turned out after they prayed onto that water, 500 people. Now it doesn't take 500 people. He did another experiment where he took a small radionics instrument and he put a flower essence into one well and then transferred the information into the water. And this was with some little daisies and chamomile. And interestingly enough, these are not flowers down here. This is the ice. These are the ice crystals. They did color in the center with some yellow to make it look more similar, but it looked very similar to the flower. And you know, there are flower essences, like homeopathic remedies that are flower essences, and it takes the vibration or the information from that flower and stores it in the water. I have a whole lot more studies like this that they've done in Germany where you can see that the information is imprinted in the water, and they've now determined that water has memory ability. It can actually memorize the information. This was done with fennel, and look how different it came out. It looks much more like the fennel than it did like the daisies. Just interesting experiments. So these are some studies. This was the original SE5, the second version of it, that Dr. Willard Frank had developed. And these studies were all done in Germany. The row of seeds on the top were not given any information, and the seeds below were given the information of health and vitality and stronger energy. And you can see after 10 days that they have been much more energized and have more vitality. These were the ones you saw before. This was an experiment that I did actually myself because I saw their study and I thought, I want to try that. And this is what I came up with. This was my greenhouse, and of course I had a good feeling about the seeds, so I actually put the information into almost all the seeds, and just a few of them I didn't because I had a feeling they weren't going to grow very well. But the rest of them then I planted, and these are all growing in just lava rock. And they just grew wonderful salads, and we ate them all, and it was wonderful. Now this was another experiment. We put informational fields into water, and we did a control study. So the water on the left had no informational fields in it. The water on the right, we looked at it under a microscope, and it grew small little crystals in it. And I got this idea from Galen Hieronymus. He had done a video like this where you could actually see the crystals growing right when they were putting the informational fields in. So these crystalline structures hold the information. Just another slide. On the left are just the control studies, and on the right were these beautiful little crystals that grew in the water. So we think that the information is actually resonating from another dimension through a crystalline structure into the physical. We're creating matter from information. Yeah? And now you guys understand how this can happen. These were some trees in Germany, and they balanced them for over 3 years, and they did it about 100 kilometers away. And after 3 years, they looked like this. And then they did another plot where these were the trees, these were deciduous trees, and after they worked on them for over a period of 3 years, and this is what they looked like after 3 years. And that was during a drought, actually. That actually, in the second year, there was a drought, and they still came back even stronger than before. I'm going to go a little bit quicker, because this was some apple juice and orange juice, and they were attempting to not have any mold grow. So this was the informed juices, apple juice and orange juice, and these were the uninformed juices, and they put them on a heater for 2 weeks, and the ones on the right obviously grew a lot more mold. This just shows the idea of the aura and the informational field. Let's slip through these. So what what I want to do, I'm just going to have to finish up, but I want to show you that tomorrow, or on Monday, I'll go through a chakra organ testing example. And the chakras have related organs to them. I know a lot of you already know this information, but we can actually test. Because what happens is the cosmic energy comes into the chakras, and if the chakra is shut down, it will starve the organs. The organs actually feed from the cosmic energy through the chakra. The other way around is also true. If the organs are traumatized, they'll try to pull too much energy through the chakra, and it will shut down the chakra. And we can test that and find out, is it primarily a chakra problem or is it an organ problem? So we'll do that on Monday, and these are just some of the charts. And we'll also go through a more medical perspective. Are we looking at relief from disease, or are we going for optimum health? And so my concept is we want to move out of this concept of getting rid of symptoms. We want to move into optimizing our health and well-being. And that's really the key. And with that, I think I'll leave you. And I hope to see you, all of you, on Monday morning in Hall 1. Thank you very much.